Well, when you think of soldiers, we think of courage, sacrifice, and honor. But behind the uniform, there are families and wives and children and loved ones who sometimes carry on with battles that we never see. So tonight's story is going to be one of those hidden battles. Domestic violence inside military families is far more common than anyone realizes. In fact, the Department of Defense reports show nearly 40% of female service members who reported abuse said their commanders discouraged them from filing those complaints. And for spouses, the numbers are even harder to track because so many never feel safe enough to even come forward. So, our guest tonight knows this reality too well. Betrayed by the very system meant to protect her, she faced dismissal from commanders, betrayal in her marriage by the marriage counselor, and silence from flawed army protocols. But she never refused to give up because her fight was not just for herself, but for her children. This is her story, the story of Christie Lee, and this is Through the Eyes of Survivors.
Important notice: the following content may be triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. All discussions are based on personal opinions and experiences. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a local support organization.
All right. Well, welcome back to Through the Eyes of Survivors. Before we get started, of course, I'm going to plug our wonderful affiliates. First, I want to talk about Truth Finder. Take a quick moment to check out Truth Finder because it can really empower you in your journey towards safety and healing. It is a simple tool that helps you uncover public records and background information about the people you may encounter in your life. Whether you're reconnecting with someone from your past or just want to ensure the people around you are trustworthy, TruthFinder provides you with the information you need to make informed decisions. And here at Through the Eyes of Survivors, we're all about creating that kind of safe space that gives survivors the tools they need to reclaim their power. And that's why we're excited to share Truth Finder with you. It's a tool that helps you take control of your own security and peace of mind. So try it out. The link will be in the description and in the comments. And thank you for supporting our mission and staying empowered. Also, Opus Clip. Opus Clip is an AI platform that helps us turn powerful podcast moments into short, impactful clips. From survivor stories and hard truths, Opus Clips help us amplify those voices and spread awareness across all the platforms we use. So definitely try out Opus Clip by using the link we provide. And one last one, our self defense keychain store. We're proud to partner with them. This is a woman and minority business that is committed to empowering individuals with practical, discreet, and stylish self defense tools. By shopping through our affiliate link, you not only are investing in your personal safety, but you're supporting our mission to amplify the survivors' voices and raise awareness. So use the code Break the Silence for 10% off. All right, so now getting into our podcast, tonight's guest is a woman whose story reflects resilience, faith, and perseverance. So Christie Lee, she was a soldier's wife, a mother of four, a survivor of severe domestic violence at the hand of her husband. It was a U.S. Army Staff Sergeant. But her story doesn't stop at survival. It's about her fight against a broken system. Despite being dismissed by commanders and betrayed by a marriage counselor and silenced by the Army protocols, Christie refused to stay silent. Today, she's rebuilt her life. She's a dedicated realtor, helping families find homes and new beginnings. She also serves as the president of the board for a nonprofit dedicated to music and the arts and using creativity as a tool for healing and hope. Christie's journey is one of faith, perseverance, and leadership. Her mission is clear: to tell the truth about military domestic violence and to fight for change for survivors who so desperately need it. And so, Christie, we welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and to share my story with everyone and to hope to raise awareness of different avenues that can be used, especially if you are a military spouse that is in the situation that I was in.
Yes, absolutely. So, for our followers out there, why don't you share some of your story with them so they can hear what was in your background and what got you to where you are now?
So the abuse really started with verbal and emotional abuse, and it was pretty consistent. And there were other people that noticed it. There was actually other leaders in his command that said, you know, you can't talk to your family like that, especially our oldest son. Um, and the really hard part was that I kept coming back to the assessment of, well, he hasn't hit me. He hasn't hit me. So it's really, you know, it's not abuse. And I would go to chaplains and counselors, and they would say that too. Well, he's never hit you. Well, just because he won't hit you right away and it's just verbal, emotional, or even financial or spiritual abuse
Right.
doesn't mean that one day, because that's what happened, that he decided to cross that line, he almost killed me.
Mhm.
I had gone into the house to get a sippy cup for our daughter, and we were going to go to California. At this point, we'd already decided we were going to get a divorce because we just were not getting along. And he followed me into the house and he just went into a blind rage. And so many people want to blame PTSD, but it wasn't PTSD. And to quote my son, my oldest son, Hunter, he said, you know, point blank, we have PTSD and I choose not to hurt anyone.
Right.
And so what happened was he got really angry. I was on chemotherapy at the time. I was very frail. You're talking about a man who outweighed me by at least 100 pounds.
Hmm.
And he grabbed my shoulders and he picked me up and he shook me like a rag doll. And I heard my neck break. I knew something was very wrong.
Right.
And he he tried to set me on my feet. and he, of course, I couldn't stand on my feet because my neck was broken,
Oh
and I
my.
fell backwards and I hit the tile and I broke my arm. And so essentially, what happened at that point was I told him that I needed to go to the hospital because I was hurt more than he realized. And I was looking at my arm and it was hanging back in a very unnatural way. And my
Yeah.
brain was telling my hand to move. And of course, I couldn't. And at that point, I knew I was in trouble. He took me to the hospital and he dropped me off in the front while he went to go park. And I started talking to the intake person and I told them my shoulder hurts really bad. And then at that point, what had happened was, you know, I was lights out
Yeah.
until, I think probably, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes when I came out, they had already done a CT. They said, your neck is broken, your arm is
Mm.
broken, you have a traumatic brain injury. We are going to go ahead and send you by ambulance to a trauma center. So they sent me by ambulance to a trauma center. And at that point, I didn't turn him in. I'll be honest with you, because so many people are like, this is your soldier. You protect your soldier no matter what, So I came home and I leaned over to pick something up off the night table and I fell off the night table. And of course, at this point, I have a broken neck, broken arm, and they ended up finding out I had some kind of cardiac event. So, what they did in front of my children was they landed the trauma copter in our cul-de-sac because at that point I had to be medevaced to the trauma center. And when I was medevac to the trauma center, they found out that I had some kind of trauma event. And what we ended up finding out eventually, and I'm still healing from it to this day, was, the blood brain barrier had been broken in my skull, of
Right.
course.
Mhm.
And I now am healing from endometriosis of the brain.
Oh, wow.
And so so this particular event, it was,
Yeah.
really challenging, and people are like, "Okay, how does she talk about it so calmly?" Well, I definitely wanna answer that question. If I'm looking at the wrong spot, I'm not 100% sure where I'm supposed to be looking at the camera,
No,
so
you're good. You're good.
okay. But the way that I can talk about this event, and then I'll talk about what came after it so calmly, truly is forgiveness.
Mhm.
I was so bound by being angry with him, and at first, I could only forgive him for, like, 1 minute, you know? So, probably in the beginning, it was 30 seconds. 30
Right.
seconds, "I'm not carrying this is not mine, I'm giving it to you," you know?
Mhm.
And then, eventually, that turned into 1 minute, which turned into 2 minutes, which turned into, hours and days and weeks until I had handed it off and it was no longer mine. Now, once that happened, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I guess so that brings us back to the story. So
Right.
basically what happened was I after I came home, I realized that I needed to turn him in. And I actually drove home with him from the hospital. And I just remember thinking, I'm never going to be safe with this man again. And he was actually helping me, like, I was taking a shower and he was helping me clean up. And he was acting like this was normal. And he was saying, I love you. And I was like, no way. So
Yeah.
I called the army counselor. The military has a family advocacy program. I called my family advocacy program counselor and said, "Look, what you saw, Staff Sergeant did. He did this to me." And what he could have done was gone to the other room, got our weapon, and ended our life. But thankfully, he was very greedy and he went and secured our finances instead. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that counselor told him that I was turning him in and
Oh, wow.
totally violated my privacy. What the military did was they put him in the barracks. He
Mhm.
was on lockdown. There was, or he was, I'm sorry, he was not on lockdown. So he was allowed to go and come as he pleased. He was allowed to pretty much do whatever he wanted. The commanders already knew that they had a problem with violence with my ex-husband. He actually received a reprimand. I cannot remember the formal name for it for in the military because he almost smoked a soldier to death. They ended up being in the hospital because he pushed them so much
Mhm.
when they were on the battlefield. And
Right.
so they already knew that this history was here. You
Mhm.
know, I had already reported to his command that he was being abusive to our older son. And like I said, I had already made a plan to leave. This just curtailed my plan to leave. And so I was packing everything up, and there was an army chaplain's wife who was very supportive, who was just wonderful to me. And we had gone to the grocery store because I was picking up things that I needed for the little ones and all that, even as bad shape as I was in, you know. And when I was in the store, somebody looked at me and said, "If your husband did this to you, get out." Because I just got back from seeing my sister and they buried her because she had 6 children and she went back into the house to get a few things when she was leaving him, and he was there and he ended her life. And so I took that as the voice of God speaking through this woman.
Mhm.
And I went all the way to California. My mom was with me. My mom drove me to California, and you know, I stayed with family for a little while till I could get an apartment on my own. Um, but what happened next is really the tragedy, and that's the way that the military handled it.
Right.
And so the family advocacy program plays a big role in deciding whether a soldier is guilty of abuse or not. There is a family advocacy, it's called the FAP CRC, and what they do is they're made up of a committee of counselors that decides whether they consider what happened abuse or not.
Oh,
And the
wow.
problem, yeah, and the problem with
Oh.
that is that these same people that decide that these soldiers are ready to go back with their families are then the same people that sit in judgment of you. And so after being a 15-year military spouse and, you know, helping out with all kinds of when soldiers were deployed, being with other wives and being there when babies were born, being there when casualties happened, all those different things, you know, I was stripped of my dependent ID. I had my insurance taken away from me as soon as we were divorced, and he left me with very little. All of our money had been wired, and you know, but God took care of us, and I'm really thankful for that. I think the first year that I left, my children and I lived on like $9,000 in
Yeah.
food stamps. And so it was pretty crazy. And so when I got the ruling from the FAPCRC, I was like, no way. Other people are going to see this. And, you know, this can't be possible that they would not consider this abuse, that this would not meet the
Mhm.
criteria for abuse. That's insane to me, right? So I started looking to for what I could do, and what I can do is I could file for an appeal for the ruling. So filed for an appeal for the ruling, and it we ended up finding out in the end that that appeal was never put up to the next level. That same counselor that told my ex-husband what happened never brought it to the next level. Well, I am a very tenacious person.
Yes, thank God. Yes.
so so I found out who the head of MedCom was, so in charge of all the family advocacy program. And he was a wonderful individual and really does you know, he's retired now, but he did care about military domestic violence. I got him my appeal. They brought it in front of a committee board, and he said they deliberated less than 5 minutes, and all 9 people that were in the review board voted unanimously that it was egregious adult abuse without contesting. So I was like, oh, I have it. It's in
Mhm.
my hand, you know. I
Yeah.
have this. I can finally prove to the courts that he should not be around our children. I can, I have this. I brought it to his commander, and his commander said to me, he's been good for a year. This doesn't really matter. It doesn't really make a difference to me. And I was crushed,
Oh, I
right?
imagine so. The man broke your neck. I
Yeah.
can't even.
It was, yeah, and I had a traumatic brain injury initially, and I've healed, of course, a lot, but like I just told you, there are some things that are healing from that day.
Yes.
And the really hard part about that was I was like, okay, so what can I do?
Mhm.
Because there are other people, even after a year, I was like, there are other people in my situation that need to know that this is being hidden.
Right.
Because in the civilian world, usually if you break somebody's neck and you almost kill them, you're going to go to jail, you know?
Yes.
And it was really challenging. At first I was able to get a restraining order, but they got to the point where they pushed me to drop the restraining order. My children went to visit him that first summer, and I had to go back to court to get custody of my children again because he was not adhering to what the custody orders are because he thinks he's above the law. And the really hard thing about all that is what the commander told me was, your life is not worth more than the education we put into our soldier. That's what he told me.
Oh.
And
That left me speechless, and I'm very usually I'm not speechless. Uh,
right.
yeah, that's the one that will definitely make you take a step back, for
Yeah.
sure.
And my son, who is no longer with us, he said, well, gosh, if somebody wants to commit a crime, they should just go into the military because
Yes,
there's no consequences.
yes,
There's no consequences. And how to even rationalize that to a 13-year-old, he didn't understand why, that would happen. And so that kind of has set the course for the rest of my story. And every time my ex just decided that he wanted to stir things up a bit, or my life was going peaceful, because what abusers hate more than anything is success.
yes,
And anytime I would start to succeed, then, he would show up again and he would use the court system against me, and the army would shield him
yes,
and often even sometimes provide him counsel. And it was extremely challenging. And so I think one of the final things that was really horrible was I was in a humanitarian relief mission in Africa with my oldest daughter. And when I was getting back on the plane from being on the mission, I saw on Facebook my son's eulogy, and I thought it was a joke.
mm,
And my son, almost 3 years ago, took his life, and he was living with my ex husband. And my ex husband decided he wasn't going to tell me until after my son was cremated. And I was not even
oh,
put, yeah, I was
mm,
not. I
hmm,
was not even put on my son's death certificate initially. He put his wife. And so once my son passed away, then what happened was he started pursuing my other son.
mhm,
And because the situation was so old, my son was 3 years old when
right,
all of this happened. So he really didn't remember
remember it,
the violence of his dad or the fact that his dad was an interrogator or all of those things. And so what happened was they showed up with their attorneys, and they convinced my son. They wined him and dined him, and they, told a bunch of lies. And I have been to court, I think it's somewhere around 16 times. And that's what happens with most of these soldiers. They become vexatious litigants,
right,
and they use the court system to then, to abuse the person that they victimized freely. and they feel like they have the right to do it. They feel like they're entitled to it because nobody has said otherwise. There's been no consequences thus far. And you may have a name and a face for my story, but I represent thousands and thousands of men and women who are afraid to come forward and tell the truth of what went on. And so the other thing, so that's where I am present. But going back to my story, that counselor, I decided this was not acceptable. And if she's done it to me, she's done it to other people.
Right.
And so I looked, and she was not military, she was civilian. And I was like, okay, there is a corrective course of action for this.
Right.
She is a state board licensed social worker. So I'm going to take my, by the way, HIPAA did not care at
HIPAA
all.
did not care at all.
HIPAA did not care at all.
Oh,
All of those forms that you guys sign are an absolute joke. I went to multiple attorneys because nobody on this call would dispute the fact that that was a clear HIPAA violation for
yes.
them to say that, her telling the person who victimized me that I had turned him in,
Right.
right? So I went to the State Board of Licensed Social Workers and I filed a complaint. And I didn't hear anything for about 6 months. So I was like, well, fell on deaf ears like everyone else, right? But
Right.
then I got a call from an investigator and they said, "Would you be okay if we combined your case with another case against her?" It's like, "Absolutely." And so they went to court and they found out that this particular counselor had actually done this to a lot of women, had also allowed men to be alone with children that they were sexually assaulting, that she knew they were sexually assaulting. And when the State Board of Licensed Social Workers finally came down and said, this is the remedial action that will have to be taken in order for you to keep your license, she handed it over and said, I don't want to be a social worker anymore.
Mm.
And so I called over 200 attorneys trying to get help. And I was told the same thing. Your case is too complicated. We don't know military law. There's no actions that we can take in this particular matter. There's no way that we can help you. And when I say that I experienced every abuse possible, except for physical abuse on that one day, you can use your imagination as to everything that occurred.
Right.
And so the big thing is people don't understand what domestic violence in the military looks like. They don't understand that the system is actually built to help and support the soldiers. And there have been some strides forward with SARC, the sexual abuse that they've set up as far as bringing forth litigation and stuff. But domestic violence is still a gray area. I just called the base nearest to me the other day, and I was like, I want to speak to a JAG attorney. And they're like, are you affiliated with the military? I told them my story and I said, I just want to ask a simple policy question,
Right.
right? If egregious domestic violence occurs on your base today, this was last week, is it up to the command to bring what the consequences are, or is it up to the military justice system? And they said the command still has the right to decide what the consequences the soldiers are. So this is on October 11th. It is 13 years since this attack happened,
Right.
and nothing has changed in the military system. So I want to give an opportunity at armytruth.com for other people to share their stories so it can be seen and heard, because there's a stigma. And for officers' wives, it's even worse
Right.
because of the social status of their husband, the way that things can be hidden, and everything else. I've had commanders come to me and say, because of your story, I look at domestic violence different. I respond to domestic violence different. I don't take anything at face value anymore. And to me, that's wonderful For every person my situation is given a voice, then that's great. Then I know that it happened for a reason, and that there's hope, and hope is growing. But the big thing is people need to understand that I'm sitting here 13 years later, and the system is still broken.
Yes. It
Commanders still have the right to decide what happens to a soldier when they commit a full-on crime, as long as it's on the base.
mhm. No, that's just deplorable. Absolutely deplorable. We're going to look at a few of the comments before we take the mid break here. So let's see. There were a lot of comments. A lot of people are shocked.
Yeah.
I'm with your story. It is very shocking. So we'll start with Jim. Jim says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Any man that abuses a woman in any way is not a man at all. The treatment you receive from our military authorities is appalling. Thank God you are speaking out and standing your ground. Amazing, strong, and intelligent. God bless you for bringing this to light. Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you, Jim.
And then, of course, people are in here, hoping you get there's some justice in all of this, but um, and Teresa says it's not only military families. Yeah, but I get it. This is your story. I've been through dealing with the after effects on my kids who witness and go through this. Don't understand how we become the bad guy afterward. It is crazy. Oh, yeah. The system
Yeah.
is definitely not built either direction. Let's see who else we have here. Oh, somebody asked about where are you from? They came in late. They were wanting to know. I don't know if you just want to give the state.
Yes, I'm from California,
Uh,
but the abuse happened on Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
okay. Wonderful. Yeah. Yes. And yes, definitely, Andrea, go back because it is a very compelling story on the repeat here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break to talk about our somatic healing retreat that's coming up here in October. Give you guys some information in a video, real quick, and we'll be back with Christy, and she's going to talk some more about our story and her story. And if you have any questions, please feel free to populate those in the comment section for us.
Are you feeling completely drained, so tired of being on all the time, of constantly pushing through? That exhaustion is more than mental. Your body is holding on to stress as deep physical tension. It's time to give yourself permission to let go. Join our Rest and Restore virtual somatic healing retreat October 10th and 11th. Through guided breathwork, meditation, and EFT tapping, you'll learn to release what no longer serves you, all from the comfort of your home. As you heal, you'll also raise crucial funds for Break the Silence, supporting vital programs for domestic violence survivors. Find the details at the link in our bio. It's time to stop performing rest and start to truly restore your mind, body, and spirit. Are you feeling completely drained, so tired of being on all the time?
All right, we're back, and definitely check that out. It's a great opportunity to find a safe space to restore and relax yourself and recover. You can, the retreat is on Friday night for a few hours and then Saturday for a few hours in the morning. You can attend both or one or the other. There's going to be some great things that go on there, like the video said, and you're helping. Provide funds for crucial programs for us by attending. So the tickets are donation based. So give what you can and definitely attend. You will be glad you did. So, all right. So we're back with Christy. So, Christy, man, your story has been like, woo, it's a roller coaster one. I haven't heard one that has as many twists since my own. So, but I mean, I think part of when you were talking was about, like, I was thinking, this lack of response basically from the military, right? How does that shape, like, you when you were in the midst of it, trying to protect your family and your children?
There are multiple things that are tied to that. What people don't realize is, if you're not part of it, the military has a culture and you become a family. Right? And so all of the people around you, because you're all in the same boat, most of you are away from your family, that becomes your culture. You shop at the commissary and your children all play ball together and you go to the same, church services, and all of that it comes together. And when a situation happens like this, like my situation, I was shoved out of that culture. And people are like, well, she must be lying. The military didn't do anything. Nothing's ever happened to the soldier, so she can't be telling the truth. And so these people that you spend Thanksgiving with and Christmas with and celebrated each other's babies being born, and you see as brothers and sisters because you're going over and getting their children because their husband's deployed and they're going to the hospital and all that, you lose that entire culture and it dies. And in some
Right.
ways they turn their back on you.
Mhm.
And it's a very hard pill to swallow, right? Because, I mean, a lot of women, everything is about, army pride, and you wear it as a badge. Some people even wear their husband's rank. That
Mhm.
wasn't my style, but that is some people's. And so to just be thrust out of that and then be totally broken and having my brain not working properly initially. So I went through my court case and everything with major brain trauma and not having an advocate. And it got to the point where even the domestic violence advocate for the military goes, I don't really think you should go after the social worker. Like, at this point, it's been 3 years. What are you gonna accomplish? I'm like, "I'm gonna accomplish her not hurting anybody else."
Right.
That's an accomplishment. I mean, that's what you should be looking at, the fact that I'm willing to do this, and I
Yes.
have nothing to gain from it.
Mhm.
It's just wanting to give a voice to the people who have been silenced. And so the healing journey was very difficult. Um, my ex-husband made it very difficult on a lot of different fronts. I do not wish him any ill will at all. I just want to make that clear. But because there is really nothing on paper, in fact, our last court date before the one that we just had, I got a call and I was talking to his command, and that abuse that he committed at the last base, his new commander was not even aware that it ever happened. So when those soldiers leave a base where that happened, that does not follow them. So then you're dealing with a new commander that has no idea what you're talking about or if you're even telling the truth.
Right.
You have the army, of course, is not going to collaborate what you're saying. Now, I do have that piece of paper from the FAPCRC that does say he was found guilty of serious abuse. So there is that, and I'm thankful for that. But the issue is the fact that until he retired, and even once he did, he was able to hide behind his uniform and
Mm.
use it. And I know so many good soldiers, so many wonderful men and women that serve our country. And this is not directed towards them at all. This is directed towards repairing a broken system,
Yes.
because somebody needs to give a voice and say, this system isn't working. Because with my ex-husband, he was at an age where he wasn't going to have any more children. But most of the time, what happens is these military men leave their family, they get a new wife and children, and the
Right.
cycle repeats.
Yep.
And so I mean, I know another soldier who almost beat his 15-year-old daughter to death, same base. And then what happened was he got another wife, got her pregnant, went to a new base, had a fresh start, and the other spouse is left picking up the pieces and trying to help children that are dealing with trauma and finding life again. And I did. I mean, I'm a realtor and a business consultant where I live. I love what I do. I'm a volunteer. Like I said, I volunteer on the board of a nonprofit organization where I live, and it's securing music and arts for the next generation. I get
Right.
to teach improv, and I truly believe why my ex-husband came against me again was because he saw that I was successful, and that wasn't acceptable. And you men and women on here that are overcomers, because we're more than just survivors. Let's be real, we're overcomers. You
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about. And
I do.
so
Mm.
with the military, it's just an extra layer because they can get free legal support. They have their commanders that they can hide behind. They can manipulate the system by wearing their uniform to court, and everybody's like, oh, they served our country. And you know what? They're not fit to wear that uniform, because there is honor in wearing that uniform. And there
Right.
is honor for the men and women who, especially, have sacrificed their lives for military service. This is in no way against military service. But the very uniform that so many people see as a shield became a weapon against me.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I know you mentioned a few things there, um, in the military culture that definitely need to change. What else do you think really needs to change within that system?
I truly believe that family advocacy, if they have been intimately involved with the family, should have absolutely no right in the counseling and the repair after that. I think that there needs to be a fresh start. I do not think that counselors that know intimate details about soldiers should then stand in judgment as to whether they have committed a crime or not. If they were on a jury, you would say right then and there that that juror is not fit to stand on trial, because they can't be non-biased. They're already biased towards one side, and they're going to protect the soldier at all costs. So I believe a civilian authority should be brought in if abuse is found, and it should be go directly to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Family advocacy does not have a law degree and does not know what abuse is by definition.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Wow, it's just incredible. Um, it's such an added layer, and I've heard some stories too because I have a board member now who used to be in the military, and her abusive ex was a military spouse, and we have another board member that she was in that she's not a board member anymore, but she's still. We love her in the organization. She had the same experience, and she was these. This is happening to they were both soldiers as well,
Mhm.
not just their exes. So um, the stories I've heard from them coming down the pike sounds very similar to what you've experienced. So, and it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Um, so did you and your children experience any kind of retaliation besides the court systems, like amongst the other military families and stuff while this was going on? I know you spoke just a little bit about that, but um, is there, that you were shunned from the culture and stuff, but um, how much more, like, especially with your children, how did that affect them?
So it didn't affect them as greatly as you would think, because we moved away
Right.
completely, and we were no longer near a base. Of course, there were questions from the little ones, why aren't we shopping at the commissary anymore? And eventually I could shop at the commissary, but it was very triggering for my children to see people in uniforms. And so I just opted to cut us off from that culture. Except I did have I still do have a Facebook page. I'm not going to say what the name is here, but if somebody contacts you, I'd be happy to give that as a resource.
Okay.
And it's just a database of other people who aren't quite ready to come forth with their story, but are ready to offer the resources that they used. A lot of the normal domestic violence resources are not available for military spouses because they automatically assume that we're financially cared for. They automatically assume that the military is going to take care of the medical stuff. So, one of the things is with TRICARE, there is a place in town where my children were receiving counseling, and Medicare was paying for it. Well, TRICARE came back and said, well, Medicare can't pay for this because they have TRICARE and we don't see this as a covered entity. So after my children had been in counseling for a few months, they said, well, the only way you can go here is if you pay $65 per child per visit. And so I ended up taking my children out of counseling. We were able to find some other resources just locally, but it took a long time, and they definitely didn't get the counseling that they needed because the Army was barring me at every turn. There's something called Military One Source,
Okay.
which is a place that you can go if you are a family that's in crisis or you're having problems with deployments, or anything like that. And they told me, well, you're not eligible for Military One Source because you're not married to a soldier anymore. So you can't utilize those things. There's also the Army Exceptional Family Member Program.
Mm-hmm.
I have a child with with a diagnosis, and what it does is it provides severe diagnosis, and it provides extra resources for that child, special therapies that wouldn't be covered by TRICARE. It gives them the ability to see special doctors that are outside of network and all that. And when I asked for my child to be an exceptional family member, they said, well, she doesn't spend any time with your ex-husband at all. He doesn't even exercise visitation. It's to benefit the soldier.
Oh, wow.
And so that was some of the things that we faced. Yeah, it was some extraordinary hardship, that was just extra layers.
Right.
And so I don't want to, I would say what the diagnosis is, but I don't want to feel like my children feel uncovered, make my children feel uncovered. But just trust me, it would have more than qualified for Army Exceptional Family Program, as well as other programs that the Army offers for other therapy. Um, you know, this particular child was in a wheelchair for 2 years,
Oh,
and they wouldn't cover any of the extra therapy because because she was no longer with her father.
oh my goodness. That's just awful. I
Yeah.
know I know you have spoken about faith. And
Mhm.
so I'm wondering, like, in the times of like this chaos going on, how did your faith sustain you through all these failures in the system?
So I can tell you certifiably, I would have went nuts if it weren't for God. You know, when there was nobody else there, the Lord was there with me.
Hmm.
He was the one that was there from the first time that I had this little tiny apartment that had one bedroom. I remember, getting on my knees in my little tiny kitchen. And I mean, I do mean tiny, like there was just enough room for me to turn around, but it was mine and it was
Yeah.
away from him. And I was safe. And the first time that I realized I was safe, and I just fell to my knees in gratitude, thinking, this is the new journey,
Hmm.
right? But then he was the same one that put that voice in my spirit that said, you have to speak up. You have to share your story. You have to let people know what happened, because there are people that are in the ground that can't speak for themselves,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
And there are cases where soldiers have taken lives in domestic violence, and it's been excused or hidden by the military. And we as a country cannot accept that. That cannot be accepted. And it's also not fair or right to the all the other soldiers that are there, that are doing the right things, that are protecting us, that are serving our countries, that are making the sacrifices and going overseas and not seeing their babies being born. Every one of them, it's they deserve the justice of this being exposed as well,
Right.
so that it doesn't happen again.
Yes, absolutely.
And, if it weren't for God, I wouldn't be here. My neck was
Yes.
broken in 2 places. He radically healed that. He's healed my brain. Like I said, I still have some things that I'm continually being healed of,
Mhm.
but, he is my peace and he is my hope, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yes, amen. We are thankful too, so much. So, personally, as a leader in your community, how has your journey shaped the way you serve others now?
So, one of the things that it's really helped me see is a need for connection for people that are on the spectrum.
Mhm.
While I'm on the spectrum myself, but it caused me to see my trauma in a different way. And so what I wanted to do was be part of this vision, because I'm the president, but I'm with a group of people and I serve on a volunteer board.
Right.
And what it did was allow me to see that children need a voice from a young age, because that is how we really can prevent this, by teaching children that they have an identity and they have a voice and they are able to have their own creativity. And by protecting the music and the arts, that allows that individuality that there are so many systems being put in place right now to take away from not just children. I mean, adults, and because we serve all ages. I just get the privilege of being the improv teacher. So most
Right.
of, my children are teen to, and beyond, and so or and below. And I love it. It's just as a volunteer. It's fun. And when you watch someone catch their voice for the first time and they go, wow, that was inside of me. I can speak.
Yeah.
I have a voice, I can be bold. And you see that little one in the corner come in, and at first they're like, and then 3 classes in, they're standing up and you're giving them a prompt and they're up there just telling it,
Yeah.
and you watch them light up and you see the light come into their eyes. Then I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you that you let me survive so I can see my children grow. Thank you, God, that you let me survive so I can be part of what is happening here. We also have a program that serves children that are complete special needs, that we offer at no cost to the
Yeah.
community. And so even if somebody is nonverbal, they can come in and just feel the presence and the vibrations of the music. And that in some way gives them a voice. And so that is probably how it shaped the way that I see it. I also I think that probably before, honestly, I was more judgmental. And now I look at everything with a different lens, because when a trauma happens, people a lot of times get trapped at that particular age because their brain kind of puts a mark there to protect them. And
Yes.
so you may meet somebody who's 40 years old, but they have the emotional maturity of a 13-year-old, because that's when they were molested. And that's when
Right.
their voice was taken from them. And so I look at people now and I go, okay, so what age did they lose their voice? Right? And when you look at somebody with that those eyes, you're looking at them through heaven's eyes, and you see and you have that understanding, then maybe you get to be part of the plan that helps them find their voice and become the age that they're meant to be, so they can become who they're supposed to be with the identity that they're meant to have.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is a wonderful work you are doing. I'm just amazed.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I know we're getting close to the end here, but final question before we look at what the audience has put into the chat for you. What message do you have out there from anybody, um, any other military like spouses or survivors who are listening today that you would want them to know or take away from your story?
So if you're someone who is being victimized, don't think he won't cross that line or she won't cross that line. Because when that day comes, that one time that that line's crossed, it could be forever.
Yes.
So don't tell yourself he's not hitting me. I'm not being abused. Anytime anybody takes your voice or makes you feel like you're crazy or, just in general bullies you in any way, shape, or form, any way that they want to take your power, that is abuse. And there is help out there. There are organizations. Domestic Violence Rally has a specific military section, and they are giving more and more people back their voices all the time. As far as, overcomers, you are an overcomer. You're not a survivor. We didn't just survive, we
Right.
overcame. It's never too late to start anything new. It's never too late to go to school. It's never too late to make a difference. And even if it seems so small, you have no idea the impact of the difference that you're making. That young person that you have in your improv class or that you have in your Sunday school class may be the very person that's going to have the voice that changes the world.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that serves makes a difference in a unique way, and any amount of service brings light, and we need more light in these times, and we need to focus more on the light that we can share, that God places inside of us.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Christy. Let's see. I didn't see any questions, but a few comments. A lot of people saying, your story's heartbreaking and it's not fair that people are being ignored. Um, Jim pointed out that this behavior is similar in the brotherhood of law enforcement and correctional officers. Some equate it to being a gang, and it's sickening, and it's directed towards spouses and children. Yes. Yeah, we've seen that over the
First responders,
years. Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of incidences, but there is help, and it's just finding that lane. And you don't have to have an army story to contact me, but anybody can at armytruth.com. But any branch of the military, I just chose Army Truth because that's what it is. This is my Army Truth, and I'm thankful for my faith in Jesus Christ, because that is truly the thing at the end of the day that has sustained me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel the same way. I don't know what I would do without my Lord to help sustain me. That is for sure. Um, yeah, I didn't see any questions. So we thank you for listening in, and thank you, Christy, so much for being here and telling your story. So what we've heard today is more than Christy's story. It's a call to action. Domestic violence in civilian life or in the military is not a private family matter. It is systemic failure when abusers are protected, especially in the military, by their rank, and survivors are silenced by that protocol. So Christie's courage reminds us that silence only protects the abuser, and every time a survivor speaks out, no matter how terrifying, no matter how lonely it can feel at the time, it cracks that wall of silence, and it forces us to see what so many would rather ignore. So, to those listening right now, if you are a military spouse living in fear or a survivor feeling trapped, know this: you're not alone. There is help and there is hope, and your life is valued beyond measure. And you have more the value than the abuse you have endured. You're an overcomer, like Christie said. So recovery is just, it's not just survival, it's reclaiming that voice, right? Your future, your freedom. And Christie's story definitely has shown us and has shown me that healing may not erase scars, but it's about wearing them as proof that you endured and overcame and that you are still standing. So, thank you for being here on Through the Eyes of Survivors. Before we close, I want to take a moment to invite you, our listeners, to get involved here at Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. We're currently looking for volunteers to help in two really important realms. First, our meta volunteers. These are people who respond to the comments and direct messages on our Facebook and Instagram pages. It may sound simple, but it is definitely powerful because every reply to every message or comment can be a reply of support that a survivor needs to feel less alone. Second, we need a podcast moderators for our live streams on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Moderators help us keep the chat safe and welcoming and supportive, while also making sure questions and comments are from our viewers are being dealt with, and you'll be right there in that moment helping us amplify those survivor voices. So if you're wondering how you can make a difference, this is definitely your chance. Give us a little bit of your time. We would love to have you on our volunteer team. To sign up and learn more, visit the link that we'll provide here on our website and apply. We'd love to have you join the team. Also, Survivor to Survivor drops every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, answering real questions from real survivors like you. If you have a question you want me to answer, please email me at podcast@breakthesilencedv.org, and we will do it anonymously. You do not have to put your name in there, and we'll address your issues. And check those episodes out and share them, because you never know the topics that we hit there. Somebody else that you know may need the answer to those same questions. And don't miss our NARC diaries over on TikTok. So we do have a TikTok. It's at BTSADV7. Go over there and check it out. The Narc Diaries is a special episode that's only for the TikTok team over there. So like and subscribe and follow us there. Uh, we read all of your comments out there of what your narcissist actually said to you. And some of them are pretty, wow. I've been blown away by everyone participating in that over there. I thought some of the things that my narcissist said were pretty wild. That over there gets pretty interesting. So check it out, because I guarantee you've probably heard it somewhere yourself, and you are not alone. And until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and most of all, stay empowered. And we'll see you next week. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop now open. And this is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but also let everyone know that you will not be silent about this important cause. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab your swag, head to our store at breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate all that the community does to help support us and this organization. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode and continue to subscribe to future episodes. Thank you.